Hey guys, this is Kirob speaking, and in today's little dev update we are going to talk about demo update number 10, which is going to be the last demo update, or the last update before the final release of the game. Oh, well, final. Well, there are going to be updates after that main release, but the game is coming out for everyone to play in just a few days. A little bit more than a week from when I'm recording this. And what do we have in that? Well, all the good stuff. Career mode! And all the single races and all the tutorials which you already have access to. Yes, so that will be fantastic. And what I'm going to do today is to take you through the massive changelog of demo update 10 and what we have been working on since the last update, which is like 5 weeks ago. So plenty of changes in here. So I would say we're just jumping in, and I'm going to highlight a few things. And the biggest focus of this update was the AI, which of course is a little difficult to show, but you have to experience it yourself. And that is going to be a lot of fun, because it has improved significantly since the last time you played, and that is very much required for the game to stand on its own two little pedals. So we are going to take a little look at what all those changes mean, and I'm going to walk you through those. But yes, let's take a look at single races first. And when we are going in here, you will see, apart from the absolutely terrible default colors we currently have selected, that the jerseys are revamped and a little clearer and more colorful. I've now just given you these arbitrary two colors, which are pretty stinky, but yes, you see that there is a lot more different designs, and very adaptable, of course, as always. How about the making Batman? Let's make Batman green Batman. Sounds good to me. Let's quickly jump into the Steinway Classic and see what kind of improvements we find along the way. Flat Hilly? Where are the main cobble expert is not along. He's not along for the ride. Oh well, better for me, I guess. One thing you see here is improved loading screens. Oh yes, improved loading screens. They now have their nice little layout that doesn't look like a placeholder anymore, because it isn't a placeholder anymore. And who doesn't want to start the race on a trait -7 section of terrain? Rough cobblestone. Yeah, you guys go. Beautiful. Okay, so what has changed? Let's talk about some of the game mechanics first, game mechanical changes. And with that, we can just move to the front here. The first one is that when you're leading out the peloton like this, previously, if you just moved as the first rider at the front of the peloton, if you moved to the node that had the peloton target on it, then you would get slipstream as if you were riding with the peloton, even though you're the first rider to go there. So that has been removed, as that was not intuitive. Also, while we're speaking of this nasty section, you probably don't want to be in P2 or P3 there across a lot of these sections, because now you're going to incur a -1 trait penalty for being in P2 or P3 while riding over such a section. Technical sections are notorious for drawing out the peloton, and that is for a good reason. It is very hard to keep position and be on your guard while getting through those sections. So yes, you receive a little bit of an extra penalty that is likely to destroy that extra slipstream you were getting. So in cobble races like this, you are going to find that if you are riding across these sections, that your benefit of hiding like a little leech in the back of the peloton, they are moot. So yeah, I think that's a good gameplay change. And what more do we have? Made the peloton able to follow energy-only moves when there is no P0. Right, beforehand it was a little finicky to steer the peloton, and there were situations where all the leaders had gone off, and there were only a few riders still remaining in the peloton, and they were in P1, like this group here. So no one was pulling the peloton, and the peloton would go terribly slow. And you had some leaders stuck in the rear of the peloton, and the peloton would just not move. And that was pretty bad. So now we have made it such that the peloton does follow a move that is made from P1 if P0 doesn't exist, if it doesn't have a relay at the front. But it only follows those moves up to energy points, up to only energy points being used. So as soon as you start using attack points, you're free of the peloton in that case. So it can only follow moves that use energy at max. And with max, I mean up to the max. So yes, this is even better weather now for riding on a rough cobble section and high speed through the peloton while attacks are going. Instant gratification to the ambulance. And what do we have more here? Oh yes, this is rather topical. I have adjusted the section chances for technical sections for the different races, and that is now implemented, that each race has a multiplier to how technical it can be. It's still completely random in that in choosing which section is going to be technical or not, but now a stage like, if we take a look here in the race calendar, a stage like the Highport race, which is a light cobble stage, will have a much higher chance of technical sections than other races in Gasmere. If we take a look at the Ellisbury Challenge, for instance, let's load this, you see that, yeah, there are barely any technical sections in there. A few more there with the downhill, but not that many. And if you take a look here, you see on average quite a few more. And that is because of the a bias that I've added to those races to make them a bit more varied. And roads in Gasmere are of average quality, while roads in Delua are of excellent quality. Look at that! There's not a single bad piece of road in here. Yes, so nice little nuanced change, which also, of course, affects how riders perform. Because someone who is, well, used to riding in a Hana, let's take a quick look, Amara here. There you get plenty of bad roads. Well, plenty. This almost looks like Highport. So I think this adds a little bit of nuance to the game, which is neat, especially considering that there's a lore to the world behind it all, and it all makes sense in that universe. So while we are watching the beautiful rain, I think it is time to talk about some AI improvements, and there are loads of them. And where do we start? Well, let's start with the leaders. Team leaders now reposition themselves to get on a good wheel. They don't do that all the time, but just for the final few turns of a stage. And they will analyze where the strong wheels are sitting, or where the strong riders are, and then do a bit of accounting for, like, okay, if they are involved in a sprint, if they move like maximum distance, where should I be roughly to be able to outsprint them just barely, so that I get the best position possible. And that, of course, depends on your rider's, or that rider's strength who's asking that question of where should I be positioned. And it depends on the strength of all the other involved riders. So this gets quite dynamic and very hectic towards the end, which is great. It kind of resembles real cycling in that it's a little chaotic towards the end, with everyone's trying to get the best wheel, and it's a bit bigger kerfuffle in the lead group. And sometimes the sprints are starting out of P1, and if there are enough helpers pulling at the front, the leaders are seeing that, and they are changing to P1 and to P0 rather, into the relay, and try to position themselves accurately in there. So it is quite dynamic and fun to play in sprints now. It is difficult to get it right. So not only do they do that, but, oh yeah, right, this changed too. You can now just instant teleport to where you're clicking. Isn't that nice? Yeah. But yes, the leaders will also analyze the whole stage and decide where it is best to come to the front of the group and how long they can stay in P3, which they would never have done before this update. They were always in P2 and thus wasting a bit of energy. Not great. That is why flat stages were pretty easy to win towards the end, because the other leaders were quite powered out while you were cheating. You were cheating by just being in P3. So depending on the race situation, they will now move to the front of the peloton and then switch into attack mode. That's also a big improvement. They will switch into attack mode only if the remainder of the stage they see they have an advantage on average, and they are currently on a node which has a high advantage score for them, which is all being calculated in the background at the start of the stage. What the AI also has learned is, let's watch this number of nodes remaining at this edge. They have, for the last 200 nodes roughly, we have implemented a completely new way for the AI to look at the current race situation. What they are now able to do is to look, the peloton is, for each P0, for the P0 rider, for the relay rider, is now looking forward who's up in front and is picking the rider with the lowest total finishing time as they estimate that. So no longer can you fool the AI by late attacks where you go while there's still an escape group up front. They will see that now and see like, oh yeah, the front escape group doesn't matter anymore. It is you who matters. We're going to chase you down and chase you down hard. That of course also was one of the big exploits that you found in all the previous updates. That was team attacks. Well yeah, team attacks work great. Well, they're kind of viable in reality as well. At least using your teammate for the lead out and then the main rider who was supposed to strike does the rest. But that will be a lot harder to do now because the pace will pick up quite significantly towards the end of a stage. And that is because not only do the relay riders in P0 now have the ability to look forwards, but they are also checking backwards to see how hard they need to ride, backwards in looking at what riders are in P1. They're looking at how hard you need to ride to make attacks impractical. So that means that they are usually striking quite the pace, and they have learned a new trick. That trick is called full throttle, and said trick involves ignoring all resource costs, which basically is we have a stance system in the game that puts the riders in a certain stance, which is giving them a certain aggressiveness. And an aggressiveness, or a stance of 4, for instance, is looking for viable moves that are either like around 0 energy, somewhat resting, or slightly energy using, and so on. And then stance 7 is around full energy usage, and stance 10 is looking for moves that are all out kind of sprint moves. But if there is a good move before, then they will prefer that, of course. So with that being said, there's now a stance 11 which cuts out all resource calculations, or considerations rather, and just lets them go as far as possible while still considering their kind of heat map, which is being calculated so that they don't headlessly run straight into a mountain. And that is instead of stopping one node early, which would leave them at the last downhill node. That kind of stuff. Another thing that you saw happen in previous builds was that the peloton was falling apart really easily. Like fragmenting really easily. And we have very much addressed that issue by using our already implemented, since previously, our bias system, where now each role that a rider is assigned to when it's appropriate, has a pretty large bias towards wanting to be in the peloton. So even if the peloton is moving a little bit harder, you will see that it's not fragmenting nearly as much anymore. And as they ride along here, you will see that it's all very consistent in that we have our little escape group up front and the peloton is chasing. Of course, it's still fragmenting a little, especially towards the end when the riders are just blown off the rear. It all looks way more realistic now for the race situation that you're in. So, yeah, this has come a long way. What also was a bigger issue, of course, was the control of the peloton over short stages, which would be a complete clusterfuck. And that has been addressed also by this new technique, the new tool the AI has been given, which is this analysis of finish time by the riders that are in front of it, so that they have a better means of calculating how hard they actually need to go in order to beat that. And that is not a perfect tool, so it gives the escapees the chance that they need, but not more than that. So it's probably still a little too likely for the escapees to win, but at the same time I think real cycling in that regard is a little bit on the boring side, that it's too often not quite as likely for the escapees to win as the drama would ask for. So on flat stages, for instance, it is very, very rare, of course, in real life that escapees get the win if there are sprinter teams in there who are doing the work to pull. But of course, this is also on you. If you are the sprinter team and you just want to make sure that it ends up in a mass sprint, then just put in that one extra pull or so that is a little bit more aggressive, and you will probably be able to get those escapees. That being said, there is still a nuance in that is missing from the game, which we will be addressing after release. We're not going to get to it right now. So you might think that is a little disappointing, and I can understand why you would think that, but right now the AI is not capable of seeing the difference between their teammate being up front in the escape group versus any other rider. And that means that sprinter teams, or well, just the teams in general who want to have a shot at winning towards the end on this stage, they are going to chase down your own teammates. They are. So that is a little bit of an inconsistency in the AI at this moment. It's consistent within the game. It's very consistent. But yes, this nuance is not quite known to it yet. What we also have done, which is more of a thing, or much more of a thing for this attack timing that I already talked about, is that the riders now, or the AI now has a means of accurately analyzing each stage. It is done node by node, and it is taking into account how the stage is as a whole, for each rider's traits as well. It's like taking into account the rider who is who's doing the analysis, that rider's traits and everything, and it is calculating how strong that rider is going to be on this stage. And they are this analysis is also seeing, for instance, a climb on the last 20 nodes, or that there's rough terrain on the last 100 nodes. And not only does that improve the timing of attacks for the leaders, but also what it does is to improve the simulation results. You, of course, don't see simulation results just yet in the demo because, well, there's no career mode where there are races that you as the player do not partake in. But yeah, that's going to change quite soon because the release is there. Or not here yet. Not here yet. In a week. Another interesting thing that we have implemented is difficulties. Everything is hard mode now compared to before. Easy is now hard mode. So we have this look ahead distance in the AI, which is basically determining how far a rider calculates into the future the best possible track of moves, where the branching is 3 branches per move. So you quickly balloon out towards large numbers of calculations. And it is considering different stances, which I just mentioned before, which are the different aggressiveness scores. And a rider has one stance, but it is considering its current stance and the stance 2 above and 2 below. And then for 2 or 3 moves into the future, projects these moves and picks the best total score that is coming from each of these paths, and then decides which one to go down according to the current stance analysis of the costs of resources. So quite complicated that, but the AI now has, for the different difficulties, either 2, 3 or 4 moves into the future where it can look and follow all those paths and decide which one to go through. So in easy mode, the normal riders only have a look ahead of 2 moves, which is still probably more than the average player does for the most part. And then for the leaders, though, the important riders who are trying to win the stage, on easy mode they have 3 turns of look ahead. So maybe that's something that we need to scale down, because everything is like hard mode anyway. What is nice to see, though, is that the AI is quite a bit quicker in easy mode than it is in hard mode. Not significantly worse, though, which is astonishing, I would say. It's in special situations. In special situations, it would be stronger in hard mode with the further look ahead, where leaders see 4 turns ahead and normal riders see 3 turns ahead. So what we've also tweaked is that escapees are now allowed to get away a little bit further at the start and then being reined in a little bit more, but in a good way, which also is dependent on stage length. The shorter the stage, the less of a leash the escapees are given. That's quite important. Also, the longer the stage, the more escapees are allowed in the break. If the stage is short, there is very little leeway there for the escapees to go, because the peloton is seeing like everyone is strong here. We need to chase hard. Oh yes, let's take a look at UI features. The first one that comes to mind is quite a cool one. I'm pressing space now. So what you see here is that this list here, when I'm not pressing space, is the real name rider list. Well, it doesn't look like a real name rider list, because these are still placeholder names, which we are going to switch out this coming week before release. But you see in there Kurt Sauer, showing you what the rider's specialization and level is behind that name. That is true only for competitors, so that you easily still can pick out your own riders. That might have to change. I don't quite know. I don't know if you would want to see your own specialization in there. Probably not, because you know your riders quite well at that point. But yes, so you do see that Hilly 12 is actually an all-rounder 12, so he's not a pure climber with a little bit of downhill or something, but rather probably has all kinds of stats. That particular rider has 1-1, which of course here is not visible, but still. Cobble Expert 12 is also visible there, but for instance you see the difference down there if you go to the very last riders, the 4 last riders, so flat 9 and flat 9 right there. The first one of these two is a sprinter and the second one is a rouleur. That's quite a bit of difference there when you're going towards a sprint, isn't it? This of course works for all groups and also works in the tooltip that you get for each rider, where it's not as relevant because you actually see their traits. Oh yes, one little thing that we changed that will be welcomed by quite a few people is that when you're moving close to specials or the finish, there was the score panel coming up, like the current standings panel for that finish. We have moved that all the way over here now so that it's not in the way anymore. It was getting in the way a lot. Another thing that we implemented just for safety's sake is, and your sanity's sake, is an autosave function which saves the state of the game at the start of the stage, so that if the game should crash while saving, you can at least return to the start of the stage. And that is quite important in a stage race. Like if you're on stage 20 of the Tour of Gasmere and the game crashes and nukes your save game, it corrupts your save game that has been created in middle stage, then no, your entire campaign playthrough is not lost, but rather just that one stage. Whew, okay, that was a lot going on there. So what I'm going to do now is just show you a final sprint. If we can get to a mass sprint. Do we have a sprinter? Kurzauer, are you a sprinter? Nah, not really. I think Igor is the man to try and get to the front here. There is... yeah, it's not quite time. It's not quite time yet. We still have well over 100 nodes to go. The management of the distance to the escapees looks pretty solid still. Let's check them out on the next turn so that we are sure that we are getting to where we want. We can always do a little pulling with Theodor. Oh yes, the front escape group is already splintering. Yeah, they are getting a little low here, the mountain riders. While these probably are more rouleurs, aren't they? Yep, rouleur 7, sprinter 8, climber 9, and rouleur 5. There's some good stuff in here. 46. The peloton is definitely picking out this rider here as the main threat. And they are going to try and chase him down. Oh, almost a little bit of a foresty look here. This is looking nice. Yeah, and the peloton has accelerated significantly. Now moving at 21, but also across some nasty technical sectors. Not too bad, but yes, still hurts. Because we are in P2 and P3, remember? This is like a severe technical section for us. I do think, however, that we do need to put Fyodor Volkov to the front and help these guys out a bit, because they don't look nearly as strong as that flat... what was it, flat 8? Let's see, he was a rouleur... sprinter 8 and flat 8, yes. Oh, flat 7. Yeah, they are quite weakened already, so let's give them a bit more juice to chase them down. Wow, you see this? How hard they are going? Well, within their means, mind you. Look at that. Mountain 10 is doing the lead work at the front, because he's irrelevant for the stage outcome. He's a helper. He's otherwise probably a leader. But yeah, he was giving his all. Look at that. 3 momentum blocked nodes means he spent 6 attack points to move there. So they are taking this threat seriously. He's probably in stance 11, like full throttle mode. The next turn will be flat 6 pulling. So he's more of a sprinter 6 really, as you see there. But yeah, he still has something in him. Can go plus 12 as max. That's decent. Let's see if he does. And there you see the first leaders coming to the front. Ah, yeah. Hilly Mountain 12. Maybe he's a lead-out rider today. And as such, will be coming to the front a little earlier. But yes, Igor certainly needs to start moving to the front now too. We don't have that many nodes left. Another pretty hard move. We are getting close to chasing them down, but there's not that much left. So I think I'm going to put in a big dig here and close the gap some more. Yeah, that's pretty much perfect. We are going to use mostly only energy for this. And now what I'm expecting to see is that there are a whole lot of other riders coming to the front. Yes, there they are. They are going to start fighting for position now. And Igor is going to join them. There we go. And we are definitely closing the gap, but I believe this is going to be a little tight. Look at him, he still has something in him. Plus 2, 6 and 7. Not quite empty. These two guys here are dead. They have nothing left. But rouleur 7 and rouleur 5. So yeah, we definitely need to do a full pull here. And here you see the lead-out riders being at the front and probably getting a little scared now. Because it wasn't quite as easy to chase down these escapees as they thought. Just like I said, it is usually on the edge. if you're just letting them ride. And the helpers in the peloton weren't quite as strong as some of these escapees. And now you see that a lot of leaders have joined the fray at the front because they are seeing that, well, we're probably not going to finish this turn. These guys might. Oh my. There will be a mass sprint, after all. But yes. So they have joined the front because there were several decent-ish riders here. Oh, that one, for instance. Cobble Light 9. He looks like a bit of a beast. He has plus 17 in speed, and then another one sprint. Yeah, he's pretty strong. And there we have Flat 9, proper sprinter. He's going to be a bit big threat. He has a plus 16, if I counted right. Plus 1 in flat, and then 7 and 8. And then another plus 4 for sprinting purposes, repositioning purposes in the sprint. There we have Flat 9, so all the big guys, the big guns, are coming up to the front. I need to join them with little Igor and see if I can push in there somehow. And now let's see if the escapees are managing to... They are not quite managing to win this right now. Or they are, depending on how hard the next move is. Do they still have something in them? This is going down to the line, but I think they got it. Because these guys didn't move quite far enough. And now momentum blocked themselves. So, yeah. Let's see. That is a hard move, though. That's a 25. Yeah, they could have gone 28, I believe. If someone else had pulled and not spent all his attack points to then block it. Maybe that was a smart move by his teammate. Who knows? That is a tactic that you could use if you... A very situational one. That you could block access to the other stack to protect them from anyone chasing them down on the line. But that is so specific. I think that is ever going to happen. But yeah, so we are going to follow along there. This is nice and easy riding. And now everyone is following along, for the most part. 7 riders there already. Hilly 12 is in there now as well. Alright. Kurt can't follow, as expected. Oh, okay, situation has changed. Some of those guys who were empty in the front could not follow this and have fallen behind. So, we are now left with an amazingly strong lead out. That is powerful. 17, plus 17. And then we have... yeah, he doesn't count. Flat 9, he's pretty solid. He can still go... plus 14, and in the slipstream, that's quite a lot. But he is doing the lead-out work for Flat 9, who looks a lot stronger. Wow. Ouch. Yeah, plus 17. And there we have Igor. Is he on a good wheel? He could be a little bit further forward, I believe. That, however, is not possible. Oh, well, is it? Yes, it is possible. But that would mean that we are... Oh, we are going to be reduced in attack. Oh, yeah, he's not going to be of any use. This lead-out was so strong that he has been maxed out and is now worthless in the sprint, more or less. We are in a decent position, but I don't think we can contest this. This is a little too rough. Let's see what happens. So, here I just let them rest. And there we go, a rainy sprint. Ooh. This was a rough one. They couldn't even build up any velocity because it was going so darn fast. Look at that move. 30 nodes! They went 30 nodes. Alright, yeah. So now I can creep forward by 1. Because I have a maximum of 5 now, reduced by 1 since last turn. And I have plus 1 in sprinting, so I have an allowance of 6. Finishing 5th on the stage, unless everyone else sprints past me, which is, of course, the case. So, yeah, that wasn't the best of positions. In that case, you would have wanted to be, and I should have used that, actually. I would have wanted to be pretty close to the lead-out, because I knew he was very strong, very fast, and I wouldn't have the power to outsprint basically anyone. So you would have wanted to be further to the front than the rear in that instance. Alright, that is all the stuff you need to think about now when you're playing mass sprints, and mass sprints are happening a lot more frequently. So the peloton did win in the end, very narrowly. But yes, that should be all for now. So the final release, the first full release of the game, I should say, is coming on the 29th of July. And I hope you're looking forward to it as much as I am. I hope you enjoyed, and see you guys next time.